This week on the Old School RuneScape Update, Wrathmaw is no more? Is PK'ing next? This week's PvP survey asks big questions such as, do players understand PvP? And how much risk is too much? But the real question remains unanswered. Also, mobile client updates and the Curse of Arrav arrive. This is the Old School RuneScape Update, episode 53, recorded Saturday, November 9th, 2024. Are PK'ers griefers? Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. Sirion and myself are here. It's not Sirion the Jet Lag edition. We put out our pre-taped plugins episode last week to forestall that because we had that wonderful content with Dan about the Run Energy update that sent you up the wall apparently when you saw how we covered that.
Yeah, a little bit. No, we had other plans, to be honest, but I mean, actually for the better, because instead of being back home and jet lagged by the time where we usually record the show last week, I was still stuck in an airport on the other side of the world because of plane delays. So, hey, actually it all worked out pretty well, I think.
It worked out in the end, and this week we have another full week of content. We honestly had no idea what was coming this week until it landed. We thought we were going to have a quiet week where we could maybe look into Game Jam, but no, nonetheless.
We knew about the mobile client.
We knew about the mobile client, but we didn't know about this PvP survey, and we also didn't know about Curse of Arrav.
No, I had expected that to land sometime in December.
Yeah, but we're going to get into that in just a moment. But if you do want to follow along, show notes can be found over at update.show/OS. You can also subscribe to the podcast there on your favorite podcast listening services, as well as YouTube at youtube.com/@OSRSupdate. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Friends chatting game, BitsBytes, Discord if you're a Discord person, update.show/Discord. Okie
yeah,
dokie.
Look, it sounds silly that we ask all of it, but it does help,
It really does. It really does, especially the engagement when you comment or when you come to the Discord and you talk to us. It means that we said something that either resonated with you, which is great,
or didn't.
Something that you disagreed with, which is interesting as well, because there's, we are in that mid to high level bracket now, getting there at least, and, learning all about these things along the way has been one of the true positives of this show so far. So it's all appreciated. But one thing I don't appreciate in this game, and I don't think I ever will, is PvP, and I had an opportunity to tell Jagex that this week with the PvP survey.
Yep, it came as a surprise to me a little bit. Like, they wanted to revive the whole Wrathmaw thing with Sandmaw, and they were going to pull that,
which is being shelved now indefinitely. Wrathmaw,
yeah,
Sandmaw,
which is,
the whole thing.
I mean, to be honest, I looked at the sentiment on Reddit, and I think Jagex must have done the same and be like, okay, this is not going to pass the poll anyway. Like, people are going to vote against it. Why bother? So I think in that sense, they made the right decision, and now they're sort of trying to figure out, okay, but what do we do instead, right? How can we? Which is fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to just start by talking a bit about my background first, actually, just to let the listeners know where I come from on the PvP side. I don't PvP in RS, any version of RS. Back in the day, 2005, 2006, our website, RSBNB, did have weekly PvP events because we had a couple of PvPers on staff. So we did that, and I, got a couple kills back in the day. Only a couple, but I did. But I do have a fairly extensive PvP gaming streak. I've played all of the big competitive games out there. I've played Counter-Strike. I've played Overwatch. I play Apex Legends. I've played Heroes of the Storm. I played League of Legends. So when it comes to competitive games and PvP, yes, that's my jam in most games, and it's what I do in most things outside of RS. And I'll even say, in another MMO, Star Trek Online, I did PvP there, and probably about 10 years ago or so, for the better part of 2 years, ran the game's largest PvP fleet. So PvP is something I'm familiar with in other games. It's something I like, but just not in RS, and we'll get into the reasons why.
Look, you're calling out all of these examples, and all that I'm hearing is games and parts of games where every participant willingly engages in player versus player combat.
Yeah.
Which is what the wilderness is not, right? So I don't know how you can compare like all of that. Like, if that's the kind of stuff you like, why are you not playing Bounty Hunter? Why are you not playing Castle Wars? Why are you not playing Clan Wars, right? That's the type of content that maps to the PvP thing in other games. If you look at, for example, like the wilderness, I think it compares much more to these survival games, these multiplayer survival games, these hardcore survival games where you can kill each other for resources. That is, to me, a much more valid comparison with the wilderness. And even that, I think, is imperfect because it people still play that knowing that PvP is a significant part of it. They're not sort of forced into playing that game because it has a piece of content that they want to engage with for the rest of their
like the
games.
agility course or the magic capes in Mage Arena up there.
Like I have no trouble with the agility course because it is built around the very concept of the wilderness, and it's optional.
Yeah.
It's very, very much optional. The Mage Training Arena capes is
not optional.
Not really. Well, I mean, it is, strictly speaking, but it kind of isn't. It's the best in slot capes, and like, you kind of have to do that. Everybody tells you have to do it, and the sentiment I've gotten from so many people is like, I'll go and do it during the quiet hours, and then hopefully be done with it as quickly as possible so I have the cape. That's the way people are engaging with the wilderness. That's not PvP anymore.
No, it's not.
That's bullying.
Yeah, and see, that kind of gets into the whole aspect of OSR's PvP in the wilderness. And I'm glad you mentioned those other game types out there. And, Castle Wars is kind of that same thing where it was fun for a bit, and then I kind of moved off it and didn't really want to go back to it because it was basic capture the flag, and maybe it's even just the RuneScape combat system, both in terms of how it was and how it is now. And I haven't thought to try things like Bounty Hunter or Last Man Standing when that was up because I was working on other things on my account, and maybe I should look into those because they're more congruent to the other types of PvP things that I do in other games. But I think that one important distinction that you've made with that is that you get to this entire question about PvP, and it automatically here boils down to the wilderness, in this case at least. Probably because that's the biggest pool for it, right?
I think, I mean, PK'ing is a term that you only really see often in two different contexts, either RuneScape or Grievous.
Sure.
And I would argue that even within RuneScape, you could consider PK as Grievous. I know that's like it's like a controversial take, but I think it holds up because everybody going in the wilderness, like, either you go there for killing players, but not really PvP, because if you want to do structured PvP, there's better places to do it.
Yeah.
So you're going there to kill the other group of people that is there, and that is the kind of people that don't really want to engage with the PK'ing, but have other reasons of being there.
You're going there to kill some poor sap who's abyssal rune crafting, or somebody who's running to the KBD.
Yes, exactly.
No.
I don't know. Like I've see you told the viewers of viewers listeners all your background. My background is like I'm too nice of a person, right? I will I'm the kind of person who in Catan will never move the bandit. I
Oh my
will
god.
like I'm too nice to play against other players. I want to just
You
play
won't
co-op
move
games.
the bandit in Catan.
Well, I will move it because the game forces me to, but I'll move it to the tower where it's least disruptive for other players.
See, 100% opposite for me.
No, yes, exactly. You're a douchebag. Which is why you're okay with the concept of PvP, but I don't know. Like, I don't mind the concept of PvP in itself, but only in certain contexts, and only where, in my opinion, it's sort of balanced, it's fair, right? Like the skill
Right.
levels are roughly equal. Whereas if I go into the wilderness and I run into one of these PK'ers, they will teleblock me, they will freeze me, and now I can do nothing but stand around for 15 seconds as I'm being killed.
Whoop-de-doo.
That to me is
That's not
like
fun.
that's not
I
even
agree, that's not fun.
like give me a fighting chance at least. But the entire combat system is so focused, or like at least the PK one, around this burst damage that if I get tagged by a PK'er, I'm just gonna sit there and wait until I die. I won't even run because I don't want to give them the pleasure of running. So no, I find it really hard to put myself in the position of these people, of like why they enjoy that kind of content, because I am just fundamentally sort of like I want to let people have their own game and play their own game.
Yeah, because, if you compare what the wilderness is map square wise compared to the free to play world, it's fairly comparable in size from when RS2 first launched, and that basically showed in 2004 when RS2 came out what part of the original design view of the game was, is that there's going to be a substantial portion of the world where open world PvP was supposed to be the way of the game, and there was supposed to be risk-based gameplay associated with that. But 20 years down the line, with a bit of a brief pause in between from 2007 to 2013, nothing really much has changed there, has it? And I think the survey that they put up was interesting to a degree, but this is something both you and I picked up on. Is this survey actually, going to result in some changes? Or is it kind of already showcasing the way Jagex is thinking on this? As in, is the survey kind of leading questions where it wants the people taking it to go?
I think the survey is asking all of the wrong questions. It's like it keeps asking how can we get more people into the wilderness? I mean, first of all, are we not getting enough people in the wilderness? That would be my first question. Is it actually an established fact? I don't know. But I think the question is like they keep adding more and more things into the wilderness, and we have outright broken things into the wilderness, right? Like the agility arena is an amazing way to make money. The Fountain of Rune, infinite runes. I mean, geez,
Yeah.
That's broken, right? So I think we're already hitting very high the cap, like very close to the cap of what you can reasonably put in the wilderness that doesn't outright completely break the game.
And to be fair, those are things that RS3 never had.
No, exactly. So
and are way more powerful than anything RS3 ever had. Continue on.
So we have a point where the wilderness offers like already the most powerful things in the entire game. There's also some like really good PVM encounters there, like a bunch of bosses. There's the resource area. I could go on. There's a lot of good stuff there. So, like, I don't think adding more of that is going to get more people into the wilderness.
No.
That's not the problem,
No.
right? And now what you're getting is like they're asking, okay, so what's keeping you from the wilderness? Is it that you don't understand PK'ing? Is it a skill issue? Basically?
Should we add more content that helps you understand PvP?
But the question is, how many people actually want to engage with that, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and then the thing that they got me with those few questions is they ask, where should this be? Should it be in game? Should it be a quest? Should it be a mini game? Should it be on the wiki? Should it be a YouTube video?
yeah. I'm like, I feel like you can already find this information.
If you want to find
it. Yeah, exactly. So I can't believe, like, I don't honestly believe that is really the main bottleneck. It can't be. It almost can't be. I think that the people who are willing to put up with the risk are willing to go into the wilderness, and the people who are not, they're not.
Yeah.
And I think we have left that equilibrium. So why are we still trying to change it?
Yeah. And that goes into the big ask of the surveys, how much risk do you feel comfortable putting into the wilderness? And, in general, broadly speaking, how much should a player be expected to risk? And what you're seeing with this is, some question, well, if, maybe if we even the playing field a bit, maybe make it so that you don't lose as many items if you're not the instigator, maybe then in that case you would have an easier time in the wilderness. But I still think that skirts the very issue that you're getting to.
Yeah. Look, I think I saw a Reddit post, and one of your suggestions somebody had was like, increase the number of items you keep on death from 3 to 5. Which sounds insane when you first think about it, but the explanation behind it is really good. You're going into the wilderness to do PvM. I think that's probably the most common reason people go into the wilderness, right? To kill one of the bosses there. The name's actually Vetion, for example, I think is killed quite commonly. But you really only want to risk 3 items, so you're gonna try and put together a PvM outfit, like a set of PvM equipment that only has 3 good items and all of the rest of the stuff you don't care about losing, like maybe 100k at most. That means that if you want to have a fighting chance of fighting back, if you are in the wilderness doing PvM and you're doing melee PvM, you're not going to be able to bring a switch, right? Because you've already used your 3 items to get a half-decent melee outfit going. So you have no chance when you get frozen because you can't fight back unless you have the ability to bring a switch. Going up to 5 items means you can actually kind of put together a decent set of PvM gear and bring a switch. And all of a sudden you have a fighting chance when a PK'er shows up.
Yeah. Yeah. But does that really, fix the bulk of the problem as to why people would be, not wanting to go in? Like,
no,
like you get halfway there if you run protect item.
Yeah, no, but still, like that. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I don't think it will fundamentally fix the issue, but that, like, if Jagex truly believes that the path of we need to give people a fighting chance to give back, I think that's one of the ways they need to look at, right? Like, make sure that it is viable to bring both the stuff that you need to do the content in the wilderness and to be anti-PK, because right now you can't really do both.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I also think with that, the entire wilderness, not just the bosses, needs a design vision from the current year, from the current decade, and not from 2002.
No, yeah, that exactly. Like, I so many games have figured out that being in a, like, if you look at gamers as a whole, there's actually only a very small niche who's okay with the whole hardcore thing.
Yeah. Did you play any, first-person shooters or, games like Doom or Duke Nukem or anything like that, the ones from the 90s?
No.
No, you didn't. Okay. One of the things that, and I don't know if any of the other, non-shoot-em-ups from that era did this, but one of the big things from that era in those types of games was that if you died without pressing that save button, you would either at the very best case go back to the start of the level, or in some cases you would go back to the entire start of the game. And that's what it feels like the wilderness is here in Old School.
It's a very dated concept, exactly. Like it's not of this day and age. And on top of that, this goes back to an earlier point I made. People do not really consent. I mean, they sort of do, I guess, but like people
There's
are not
a big sign and you click the ditch to go across. That's your consent.
Yeah, that's your consent, but like I think it is almost like a forced consent. Right? It's like you sign like your name on the big long contract piece of parchment, right? You sign over your soul because you don't really have a choice to not agree with the terms and conditions if you want to make use of this content.
Yeah.
And that's what player killing feels like. It's the big TNC checkbox that you have to click that says, oh, now all of your data is owned by Meta. But if you don't really have access to the whole of the internet.
Yeah. And
that's what it feels like.
And it really gets down to a core point. Like, what if you legitimately approach this rather than trying to approach it from the wilderness PvP angle? The question I would be asking in this survey, and this survey didn't get there, what do players actually want from the wilderness?
Carefree. Like, look at the league stats, right? Almost nobody chose the wilderness.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, nobody cares.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, right? Like, let's say that this vision that Jagex has set out here, where everybody is going to be educated on all of the PK-specific combat rules. We'll get back to that in a moment, I'm pretty sure. That everybody will always bring like a piece of gear, that they will all fight back. And now all of a sudden, you've turned the players in the wilderness from loot piñatas into actually dangerous things. Look, there's a lot of toxicity going on in PK'ing, and I think a lot of people that do the PK'ing are sad little boys in a basement whose only power fantasy is to kill defenseless people into the wilderness, right? Because they get off on that. Not all of them, mind you, but I think that, this is the kind of content that attracts that kind of folk. I mean, look at the whole controversy around Deadman. Look at the whole controversy around Deadman, right?
You're not wrong.
So the moment that the people that they're trying to kill actually start fighting back and become successful at it, I think they will lose interest very, very quickly. And all of a sudden, who is actually interested in player killing? Like, no, I don't think that the people who are interested in actual PvP are in the wilderness.
No, they're not.
So why are we trying to make the wilderness a place for that? Nobody wants this.
And the question is, where did this directive come from? Was it, something that OS's lead designer put in, that we're going to do a piece of wilderness content this month? Was it something that the OS executive producer said, hey, let's, find a way to get more people into the wilderness? Like, where is this directive coming from? And is there not a discussion that it's okay with the wilderness being how it is, and maybe, the unfortunate realization that something like the wilderness just doesn't make sense to have in the game anymore for, health reasons?
I think there's an irrational fear here, right? Because two parts leading into this. First of all, there's the whole thing where actually I might have my timelines wrong, but we have this whole thing where the wilderness and the PvP aspect was removed altogether from RS3 specifically.
Yes, and the reason that happened was because of the illegal trading.
And the reason it happened was because of the illegal trading. But so many people have heralded this as being the reason that RS3 is now dead. I mean, spoiler, still there and kicking and actually doing reasonably well. But like, this is like one of the things that maybe to the point of irrationality, the old school community is proud of. We still have the wilderness. It's the thing that RS3 doesn't have anymore. The combat system in RS3 has basically killed all PvP.
Yeah, because it's balanced around the NPC and the boss, not the player.
So the moment that Jagex announces we're taking PvP out of the wilderness, you get a massive outcry that is not based on rationality and fact and good design, but from that emotional point where that one thing that made, well, not the one thing, but one of the things that made old school unique and quote unquote better now goes away.
And the question I have from that, you can continue on in just a moment if you want. The question I had from that is that would the game break? Would old school break if the wilderness went away tomorrow?
No, I don't think so. Like that was where I was going, right? Like I think the game is healthy without it. We have a hugely successful community, creator community, which creates content largely not based on PvP. We have things like leagues and special game modes, and we can continue to have Deadman, right? We have other PvP game modes.
Deadman, Last Man Standing.
Exactly. All of that will continue to be around. So I think the game doesn't need it. And to that point, I think we just need to be okay with letting it die at this point. Like, I think you are catering.
That's ripping the Band-Aid off, but I agree.
Like, you're trying, like, I think the community has spoken to action. They don't want the wilderness.
Well, yeah, every wilderness thing they put up fails on the poll.
Yeah, and, like, they keep trying to come up with content to make me go there. And I've said, I just don't want to go there. Earlier today, I destroyed a clue that was in the wilderness. To be honest, I was doing Hellhound, so I was going to get a clue and another clue and 2 kills anyway.
Fair enough.
But, you know, like that's the kind of, like, extent I go to avoid the wilderness. So,
yeah.
Why are we trying so hard to make content that people won't enjoy, that the games industry as a whole has decided is not fun? Why are we trying to make it work?
Yeah, and instead Jagex's alternative is, hey, does the wilderness, telegraph well enough how things like single-way and multi-way combat work, how stuns work,
I mean, it doesn't.
how teleblocks work, how risk works, and how all these things work.
It doesn't. It doesn't, and that's a problem. And maybe that needs to be solved. But that's not going to get more people.
Yeah, you just said right. Okay, good. I put in this thing here as, maybe there would be some world where we didn't agree on this, and, maybe there could be some kind of new reward that the wilderness content should give. So I'm just gonna say no, we're not gonna.
Look, I think the last point is that, to me, it is absolutely bonkers that all of the main combat items have completely different, or at least slightly different, uses in PK.
Yes.
Right? So
precisely.
I think the way someone like this person put it on the Reddit post, and maybe we'll put the link to the Reddit post in the show notes. It was really well written. Was like, so the Justicia set, right? Has a tank armor set, which like has a set effect. It has a set effect, but the set effect doesn't work in certain circumstances, including PK'ing. And I'm trying real hard to find the exact wording, because it was said really well. Oh no, sorry, it's alter casting. So if you equip, unequip, and re-equip a staff, right? It remembers your spell.
Right.
There is 3 reasons why it isn't the case. 1 is that the staff can't alter cast spells.
Makes sense,
right? 2, you've run out of rune to alter cast.
Another logical thing.
3, you're fighting another player. One of these is not like the others.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the kind of inexplicable changes that the game has. that, like, even if people wanted to engage with PvP in the wilderness, it is so utterly detached from the rest of the game. And I think this goes to show that it's almost two different games that are played by two different people.
Yeah, and that actually makes sense, and that reminds me of a very good analogy, because Star Trek Online PvP, the game came out in 2010, and for the first 5 years or so, PvP worked pretty good, but over time, the game started getting more and more powerful things, and they were balanced towards fighting NPCs, fighting the game's raids and whatnot, and lo and behold, over time, PvP became overpowered and died. Whereas OS is making the exact opposite thing. We're just going to keep all these little, edge cases in play that allows this weapon and that weapon to have different effects in PvP. And that's how PvP thrives in old school.
And this, once again, the fact that these things are different and the meta is completely different for PK'ing compared to PvM. Basically comes back to the earlier point I was making, is that once you're geared up for PvM in the wilderness, you're not geared up for PvP. So you can never really fight back unless you bring two sets. Which, who wants to do that in the wilderness if you stand to risk all of that?
Yeah. I was thinking this was going to be a controversial opinion coming in here, and the listeners can let us know, but, let's just remove wilderness PvP at this point. Just remove it.
I am seriously, I would be really curious as who actually wants it to be alive, and I think, the only, and this is a big assumption, but the only, way I can see there being a demand for more people going to the wilderness is the PK'ers who just want more loot pinatas to kill.
Yeah, and maybe that's maybe that's a short-sighted way of looking at it, but that's definitely what it feels like from our perspective.
Exactly, and maybe that's what the poll is trying to do. How can we get more loot pinatas into the wilderness? But being a loot pinata is fundamentally not fun. So why are we trying to make people engage with content that's fundamentally not fun? The whole thing just reeks of game design problematicness, problems. I don't know.
You got it in the end. I think that's just a good way of putting the wilderness up, and it's trying to take something that was designed for 2002 to make it fit into 2024.
Yeah.
So, but in any case, one thing that is definitely not designed for 2002 is this week's mobile client updates.
Ooh, well, that's a very unexpected but very well crafted little bridge.
It is.
You don't play much mobile, do you?
No, I don't, but I had a look at it, and just what this has brought into the game in terms of, features that we use Runelite plugins for that then get backported into the official client. It makes it so that, 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 fewer plugins are needed when the official plugins arrive for the official client on that side of the equation. But overall, you're more the mobile person than I am, and I went through each thing here that was listed, from the new side stones to the hotkeys to the new chat window, and then had a brief look at all the plugins here. What's your biggest takeaway from this as being the most impactful for you as somebody who uses mobile multiple times a day?
Look, it's not necessarily a game changer for my herb runs, right? Herb runs were always already very, very doable. Right? But it has allowed me for a few more shortcuts. So, changing the left click option of the leprechauns to exchange, which is a nice little, long press I no longer have to do. I think most of my other stuff was fine anyway already. I used to have left click options on my teleport items, but I kept accidentally misclicking them, so
Fair enough.
So like overall, I don't think it will change my day to day too much. I do think that it definitely lowers the bar for me to do maybe a little bit more engaged content. You know,
A boss?
Maybe I can see it happen, you know, and also with like left click options being changeable now.
Yeah.
That suddenly opens up a whole bunch of production skills in my back.
One of the biggest ones for me was the click to drop option.
That was always there already.
Oh, it was.
Yes.
Okay, maybe it was just hard to get to then.
No, it really wasn't that hard to get to. You just had to know where to find it. But how do you think I trained fishing on leagues last year?
Okay, that makes sense.
But you know, like things like tile indicators, I don't expect me to use that much. That's like really a bossing thing, and I don't see myself doing bossing on mobile. But definitely sort of changing left click options really opens up a few cool options in terms of, you know, production skills and all that.
Yeah. One of my favorite things that I was looking at in the screenshots with this is that there's a screenshot at a boss where the entire right hand side stone menu is collapsed, but on the left hand side you have prayers up, and then the world map is gone at the right, and it really makes it all just about what you're doing on the main screen there at the end. And you can add toggle options, you know, for run you can make it so that you don't have the option to move anywhere, so you don't miss move by accident, that sort of thing. And I think what we've seen here is just so interesting, and here's the reason why, is that this is I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, given where we're at with the amount of plugins people use and what's, you know, happened to the client over time, I feel like this is a smarter evolution of the OSRS UI than what we have on the desktop. Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. And it makes sense as well, of course, because you're sort of stuck in. But yeah, it really does. It really does. I also think, and this might be an unpopular opinion, that the old school mobile UI is way more usable than the RS3 one, for example.
Well, it's a simpler game. You're not trying to cram an action bar and other, you know, top level menus in there. So
fair enough.
Because that's the biggest thing that hurts RS3 mobile, is the fact if you want to do combat, the lower third of your screen is taken up by your action bars, and then you got to figure out where to put the game's, you know, key F menus, the thing that opens up, you know, where all your abilities are, your achievements, your social stuff, etc. Whereas you don't have that here. That's kind of all abstracted away into those stone panes that you have on the bottom right on the official client. So
yeah, fair enough. But yeah, no. Overall, look, is it a game changer? No, but like I can see it taking away a lot of obstacles for people wanting to engage with the game too mobile, either exclusively or a little bit more. You know, they're willing to do bosses and all of that stuff. So I think this is a fantastic update. I've been looking forward to this a lot. I really have no complaints. I think the biggest complaint people had was like, I want my old stuff back, which you can sort of fake it back by you setting the hotkeys to the bars that were on the left previously. Yeah. But ultimately, I think the people who would want it back are a minority. So
I also want to say that the predictive typing in iOS actually works now on the keyboard with the chat.
Oh, that's lovely.
Because if you would, you know how it pops up the 3 words there? Or if you use the swipey thing, that would just put in the weirdest of words before, and you would have absolutely zero idea of what you were putting in. So you would have no choice prior to this update other than just to type out each word manually. So that's something I did notice with this. But is the biggest winner here the official client? Because they have a list here of everything that's now in the official client with this.
Yeah, I think so. Like, look, yes, and that is where we're all going to go eventually. So, yes.
Because let's be honest, loading a Java applet, even if it's via the RuneLite launcher in 2024, is a little bit dated in terms of getting RS up and running.
Yeah,
it's just what it adds. So, I mean, this is something you wanted before your trip. It's good that it came out now and we were able to cover it live and get a bit of a sampling of it. But yeah, overall pleased on that.
Yeah, look, I brought my iPad on my trip, so I played a little bit on my
How'd
iPad.
that go?
It's fine, it's the game is definitely not optimized for
it's just scaled up phone UI.
It really is, but it works fine, right? It's good enough, and all the click areas are a little bit bigger, so it actually plays quite nicely.
Well, that's good. I wonder if the keyboard and mouse works with it, because you can hook those up to iOS.
I think they do. So, like, they did change it, for example, that the F keys now work if you have a keyboard attached. So, that's another big deal that wasn't there previously. So, all in all, I think, I might have to. I haven't given it much of a try yet on my iPad.
Yeah, I'd be really curious to know how the mouse works if you have a Bluetooth mouse, because the mouse support on iPad OS is something that I always smile about in terms of how they did that. It doesn't work on the RS3 client, and that's partially why I'm so interested to see if there's good mouse support on the OS client for iPad.
Look, my iPad is right here. Let me just.
Do you have a Bluetooth mouse?
I do not have a Bluetooth mouse.
Okay,
but I have a trackpad on it,
and that shows the cursor.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well.
So let me just. Where are you? Oh, it's just a cursor. Yeah, it works fine.
So you can click around.
It's a cursor. It actually is shaped like a little cursor.
So it's not the iOS cursor; it's an actual.
Yeah,
pointer.
Well, it might be an iOS cursor, but like it is actually a pointy thing rather than the.
And it works.
It works like normal. I can click on the buttons. I can open hotkeys and close it. Can use the arrow keys to change my camera.
I want that for RS3.
I don't have a function key on here, so I don't think I can use F keys. Yeah, so my keyboard doesn't have a function. It has a function row, but no F keys. So
do you have the FN button?
No, that's missing.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's the one thing that I can't do, but other than that, it seems to work completely fine. It's basically like I'm playing on a laptop at this point with a trackpad.
Nice. And I know there's lots of trackpad gamers out there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the zoom gesture doesn't work on the trackpad. Can't pan around with two. Oh no! I can zoom, but not the pinch gesture. Okay, that's nice.
Okay.
The minimap. Yeah, no. Look, almost everything that I want to work out of this works. So
that's a really good experience. Right on.
Yeah. So you heard it here live.
What about Curse of Arrav?
Curse or Arrav. Right,
Curse of Arrav.
Right. Know how much they changed? I don't remember much of the original.
See, here's the funniest thing. I had zero memory of doing this quest until I got into the basement pit. And then it changes. And then after I was finished, I pulled up the RS3 guide and the OS guide side by side, and, it's pretty much the same, Maybe there's a few little dialogue changes here and there, but it's pretty much the same until you get to Arav's heart in the end.
Yeah, I mean, look, of course, the part in the desert was not Curse of Arrav, but missing my mummy.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And you meet the queen mummy, and you talk to her, and all of that was gone, right? Like that entire exchange is gone.
Because we don't have missing my mummy.
Exactly. You raid the tomb, and that's it. So I did remember that part, but of course that's part of a different quest. Same with the basement. That being said, all of it, and looking at all of it in total, it doesn't feel like a quest that's 10 years old.
Which is so interesting, and I had that exact same thought, or something like it, because I was thinking, how is this going to compare to like how Well Gothic Sleeps went?
15 years old. Curse of Arrav was originally released in July 2009.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's the deal here? How come Well Gothic Sleeps felt like it was shoehorned into modern standards, but this felt okay? What's the deal here?
Expectations, maybe?
Expectations of modern Grandmaster Quest, dare you say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I see that. And, overall, I feel like everything that, you can pick up about the Majorat in this, I feel like this is just good to have this in there as that necessary step to getting to be whatever old school's thing that sits in place of Ritual of the Majorat would be. We know it's not going to be Ritual of the Majorat, but whatever sits in that place, it's good to have Curse of Arrav there.
Yeah.
So,
of course, the original quest required summoning.
Which is fine. But, I mean,
but yeah, like the little puzzle with the strip, right, where you have to place the strips over the right rows. I remembered that. I could instantly solve that puzzle because I still remembered.
Yeah, you just based on the code word that you get, you just line it up based on what letters you had.
Well, the interesting thing is, I think that puzzle returns in the later quest, in RS3. So, but yeah, no, I think all of it was, I don't know, it felt like a pretty decent quest.
Yeah, which I wasn't expecting going in, and I mean that's good. What about the end of the quest? Because that's where they change it. Rather than just, grabbing the heart and teleporting it away, you actually have a boss fight now against Arrav.
It didn't bother me so much. I mean, in the original game version, I think you actually fought Arrav a little bit in the castle until he hit a certain hit point threshold.
Yeah,
so
weakening him.
I guess they moved that to the end of the quest. I was underprepared for the fight. I had a big, like, the mechanics, fine, no big problem with that, but the accuracy, oh god, I just could not hit him.
Okay, I was thinking that was a me problem. Glad it wasn't just a me problem.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I used my Guthans. I ended up using super combat potions, piety, protect from melee.
Yep. Similar here.
And I brought the blowpipe to take the zombies out when they spawned.
Oh no, I didn't. Which did drag me in the path of the axe once or twice.
Did you catch the little? I don't know if you were reading the wiki as you went along with it. I was. Did you catch the little thing where you can catch the axe and do a big spike of damage to him?
I didn't even.
I did it once by accident somehow.
But yeah,
when I was switching from blowpipe to spear, but
yeah, but yeah, no, that's overall. I think it's a pretty solid one. I really like that. Like this. This to me still falls within the realm of the good Majorat quest. This is where the sales sort of interesting. I love the extra lore and the information you can get about this as one. Zamarigo's notes on all of the
I
Majorat.
am amazing.
I am amazing, yeah. But of course, that really introduces like a lot of lore about all of these Majorats.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Of course, in RS3, this is a requirement for the temple at Santistan, which is a big one.
Yeah, for the non-RS3 listeners, that's where we get curses that everybody just uses, and this is why we don't have extra prayer books in old school, because people don't want to go down that path again. Rightly so, I think, maybe.
Exactly. You do get the decoder strips in that as well. So that's
and they're also used in Ritual of the Majorat, too.
Yeah, exactly. Temple of Santistan comes after this, but
I wonder if we're going to get something that's similar to that, or if they're just going to move on to the Grandmaster.
The Temple of Santistan leads straight into Ritual of the Majorat.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So the question is,
it wouldn't surprise me if we still get like the Temple of Santistan or something. I think honestly, because that's where you open up the rest of Zamarigo's fort, don't you? In that quest. So I do expect we will get that as well.
And the lore. No, of course not. And I think the lore ramifications of that are interesting, because we do a segment on the RS3 show called Lore Diggers, and one of the things that we can consistently go back to if we want to do Lore Diggers is we just open up the dictionary and find a Majorat and do an episode on that Majorat, because there's so much to know about them, and seeing where they come from in these quests, again, as was in Curse of Arrav, is always just a fun thing to do. So I know we're questers and lore people here primarily, but that's what Curse of Arrav scratched for me in terms of itches.
Yeah, like we'll have to see where they go after this. Like the temple at Santistan, what that really started kicking off was the whole Zaros timeline. Which I am not a fan of personally, because of what it led to. But
that's a whole other can of worms.
But look, when they released Defender of Farok, I was a little bit skeptical, but I think Curse of Arrav is maybe my favorite one that they've backported in the time I've started playing so far in the last 2 years or so. I love that Land of the Goblins as well, but
I like the gnome one.
Oh, yeah, not as much as this one though. I think I like Curse of Arrav a little bit better.
Okay.
I love the little Mission Impossible bit.
Yes, I did see that too. That was great.
Yeah. So I think this was a really it was a very concise quest.
Yeah.
Very neat.
Yeah.
Very tidy. Very focused. Despite the fact that they added missing my mummy into the front, it didn't really. The whole thing still felt as a good whole.
I think that's a good way of putting it, but.
And one thing I saw, just sort of off topic, is that originally they wanted to release like the wiki. I was reading the wiki, as you said, and it was saying that the original idea was to have a so to have the Tale of the Muspa, Missing My Mummy, The Curse of Arrav, and the Temple of Santistan as a single quest called The Mysteries of the Majorat.
No.
Where each of them sort of follow like a different Majorat, I suppose, because...
I mean, I can see that's the same kind of Desert Treasure vibe sort of thing, but at the same time, if you can do it in, 3 concise quests, why not?
That's fair. But it would have been interesting. Right now, it's a little bit messy, like which Majorat you're engaging with in different quests, because all of it is going to converge eventually.
And it's very hard to keep straight for the players who aren't lore players, I'll say.
Exactly. So it would have maybe been interesting to be a little bit more explicit about it. Like the idea of Mysteries of the Majorat is that it's basically like a bit like Recipe for Disaster with different Majorat, where you get the prequel story, like the origin story of all of the Majorat. But
Yeah.
look, it's honestly completely fine. This was a Zamarigo quest. He's the guy who hates Farok. That's on you.
And that's really all you need to know, and
That's
how
really all you need.
How it all ties back to Arrav. So that pretty much marks the end of my prepared remarks this week. You good? Anything else you want to get off your chest from while you've been gone?
Nope.
Well then, folks, that pretty much brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. As we mentioned at the top of the show notes and the ability to subscribe to the episodes so you get them as soon as they arrive can be found over at update.show/OS. We're also on YouTube at youtube.com/@OSRSupdate. Let us know what you think about PvP in the wilderness, or rather PK'ing. Let us know.
Have we got it wrong? Have we got it wrong?
Have we got it wrong? Or are we striking the tone of the silent majority? With that being said, we'll see you guys next week for another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
Bye.